Welcome to this Dissecting Design. We're going to be taking a look at Toejam and Earl Back in the Groove. This is the recently released Kickstarted back take on the game. As always, this footage you're seeing is going to be sped up and is taken from our live stream play. So, with Toejam and Earl Back in the Groove, this was developer Greg Johnson and his team's chance to bring this franchise back after a very unique first game, a polarizing second game, and an often considered bad third one. With Back in the Groove, this is their attempt at trying to modernize this kind of design compared to trying to reinvent the wheel. But there are a few interesting new aspects of the game that we'll talk about later on. But let's begin with kind of the basics of the game. This is a pseudo roguelike. Each level is procedurally generated, at least if you're playing this on a random world. Your mission is to find 10 pieces of your funky spaceship that have been scattered around, all while avoiding various enemies, traps, and picking up presents. The presents are a major aspect of the roguelike design that we'll talk about probably in our next section. Right now, this is kind of the bonus level, it's kind of secret, but when it comes to the game, each level will have various items and hazards to avoid, and you have a set number of lives, which you can't see in the bottom because my info box is blocking it. But the roguelike elements of Toejam and Earl made it one of the first games to be more action-oriented without having the pure RPG of a traditional rogue. So when you get through a level or get to a new level in the game, the level space, as we said, is procedurally built. At the start of each new game, the presents or the boxes and what's in them are going to be randomly shuffled. This is a long-standing element of roguelike design, having one element that is always different each play. The Binding of Isaac has pills, many roguelikes feature potions, things like that. In Toejam here, we have presents, and the actual functionality of the presents are hard-coded. That's where you see stuff like high tops, inner tube, things like that. But we don't know where they're going to be when we start a new game. It could be in that kind of blue, I'm not even sure what that shape is, kind of present. It could be in a black box, a green box, whatever. Now, when it comes to Toejam and Earl, you earn experience as you explore the maps, go up in the elevator, and even just by performing some various bonus games. And they will level you up. When you level up in Toejam, and you'll probably see this later on in this piece, you'll gain random points in set stats. That's one of the new elements that are in Back in the Groove to try to make it more appealing to newer fans of the series. And the accessibility is definitely where Back in the Groove try to differentiate itself and stand out. So as we said already, the presents are random, and that's a known element. But they can now show up in various states. The amped version is kind of the enhanced version. A busted version is either a weakened or one that just doesn't work. And as you level up, you'll unlock more slots to try and hold on to more of these presents. Now, one thing that we didn't talk about in the very beginning of the game was that when you choose your character from the starting pool, each character starts with different presents, has different ratings in the stats, and has one special ability. Earl, who you haven't seen, can eat all the nasty food. Now, what you just saw there was me leveling up, and again, getting the random pool of stats. That is kind of one of my little issues with the game that we'll talk about later on. Another feature that is new in Back in the Groove is how you find presents. Traditionally, in the first games, they were just hidden all over the map. Now, you have to search the environment for them. That's what I was doing when the camera kind of zooms out for a second. You see that kind of aura around Toejam. It's a feature that was kind of meant to clean up the game space, but it doesn't, I think, add anything to things. And again, we'll talk about issues with the design later on. But let's talk a little bit more about the enemy designs and just general gameplay while Toejam here is wandering around in the ice. So, when it comes to the gameplay of Back in the Groove, as well as the first and third game in the series. You've probably noticed that we haven't made too much progress so far in this video. And that's because the actual progress in order to beat the game is random. We need to find the 10 ship pieces that are hidden around the world itself. You know that there's going to be a ship piece when there's a little icon at the top of the screen where you see the level 5. But while we're waiting for that, we need to get to the elevator on each floor. Now you've probably noticed that there's a lot of dead space or empty space in these levels. That's because you can fall or be knocked off and you'll return to the lower level. The levels themselves, once generated, are fixed. Now, you saw me revealing the map there. Now, the various weird people that you see, or the Earthlings as we'll call them, come in two varieties. You have good ones, such as the fat opera singer, the man who's dressed up as a carrot, don't know why that is, that's just part of the game, and a few other ones. They'll aid you by using money or doing other things to help you. The vast majority of the enemies are bad Earthlings, such as that guy on the little, what is that, like a motorized, I always forget the name of those. Those like little scooter thingies. But all the enemies will basically track you once they know you're there. You can sneak around to some extent, which I don't do probably as often as I should. But each enemy is a fixed value, just like the presence or their functionality. And they all have varying kinds of crazy abilities. Sometimes these mailboxes, as you see, could be a mimic, and they'll try and attack you. This guy with the lawnmower just tried to run me over. And later on in the video, I get attacked by an evil ice cream truck. This is a little bonus game called the Funkatron Zone, which is just kind of a way of breaking things up, earning you a few more resources and experience, and just kind of is there. It's a holdover from the previous games. This Pharaoh guy here, I believe he can amp up presence, and we have a Cupid here who can reverse my controls. So here is where I'm actually making my first technical real point of progress, getting the ship piece. 1 down, 10 to go. Now that tornado can actually blow me off the stage if I'm not careful. Now in terms of the biomes themselves, the game doesn't have too many of them. Sometimes it will spawn an environment that has a lot of water, sometimes it's sand, or desert, but generally it's going to be more like a generic, grassy land. And again, it's not so much the environment, at least at the offset, that's going to affect the difficulty of the game, but where the Earthlings spawn and which ones you get. Later on in the game, you'll see this probably in the coming minutes of this video, you'll find elite variants of the Earthlings, and that is 100% new to this version of the game. Basically, every bad Earthling that you see, like the caveman, the Inquisition guy, or even this weird dentist guy that's right there, have a stronger version of them. And these guys will do more damage, they'll have greater effects, and generally they're going to kill you a lot faster if they get in touch, or they get to reach you. But, as you're seeing with the footage here, the levels themselves don't really add much to the core gameplay. Again, every level it's basically, is there a present here? Yes, I gotta go find it. No, let me just go find the elevator. And that does create some of the issues with, I guess, the long-term replayability of the title. I'm going to fast forward or speed up the footage more as we talk about replayability, as that is a new feature for this game. Now, when you're going to repeat this game, you'll do this for several reasons. One, and the most common, is that you die. You run out of lives, you didn't get all the ship pieces, and you have to restart. But for people who do beat the game, or get further in, you'll start to unlock new features that can show up. There are quote-unquote super presents that become unlocked as you beat the game, and once they've been unlocked, they will show up in subsequent runs. There's also additional, I think it's 3 or 4 characters that are also available, each with their own special ability as well as what stats they have allocated at that time. And it's a decent way of adding replay value. Again, with the first game, it was basically you die, you restart, and that's about it. But I don't think it goes far enough in terms of keeping the player motivated to keep replaying it. Probably the best reason to replay Toejam and Earl is the co-op factor. The game has local and online co-op play. You can even set the game for drop in and out multiplayer, meaning that you basically have an open lobby, and while you're playing, somebody can join and help you, they can leave, and all that other great stuff. And I think that is probably one of the big areas of value that Back in the Groove adds. But unfortunately, I don't think the game goes far enough, especially compared to how the roguelike genre has evolved over this past decade. And we're going to talk about some of the problems I have with the game now. But first, a quick shout out to our Patreon backers. And now for a quick thank you to our Patreon backers. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, you'll find our Discord channel linked down below. Now with Back in the Groove here, while what's here is not bad, but I can't point anything that I would say is a horrible example of design, the game has a mix of little issues as well as just the overall state of the scope of the gameplay loop. Let's start with the little issues. The one that really annoys me is the new search mechanic. As we said in the previous parts, in order to find presents now, you have to keep doing this command and then searching for them in whether it's a tree, a house, a hut, whatever. And my problem is that it adds another thing to keep track of that doesn't really add anything to the game. It's part of the stat system that you can upgrade your search radius, but it just feels like wasted time because you need to stop what you're doing not only to perform the command, but to then also search for the present. And in the original one, like I said, all the presents were just laid out on the ground, and while it did look a lot messier, it kept the flow of the gameplay intact. Now, for those of you watching this right now, you're probably asking, what is the big deal if you're stopping for like a second to do this? The issue is that it is repeated as many times as you want to search for presents. So, you could be spending minutes at a time over the course of a single play doing this one command. And like I said, it was in the original one, and I don't think it really adds anything. Now, another thing that they did add were these kind of little mini games. These are the kind of rhythm things that you can do. I didn't do anything during this playthrough, so you're not going to see it. And I'm like either here nor there about it. It's just kind of there in the wings. But the main issue that I have with Back in the Groove, again, stems from, I think, just the general lack of replayability or design that we see in modern-day roguelikes, specifically in the variance department. As we've talked about many times over, good roguelike design is about presenting almost an inexhaustible number of varying situations, challenges, and anything that can keep the player guessing as to how to play their game. And Back in the Groove doesn't have that. Now, to be fair, the original Toejam and Earl didn't go that far either. But again, we're talking about, I think it's over 20 years since the first Toejam and Earl. And we kind of expect more, I think, from roguelike design today compared to back in the day. And it's kind of a shame about that. And your overall enjoyment of Back in the Groove is going to come from one thing. Did you expect essentially Toejam and Earl 4? Or did you want Toejam and Earl 1.5? If you expected a brand new game, you are going to be very disappointed. If you wanted that old school design, but with a few modern conveniences, then Back in the Groove is going to be better suited for you. And I would definitely recommend you getting a second player or playing this online for the complete feature. Because while the game isn't as random as I would like, it does have it in a few annoying spots. Now, as you've been watching this play so far, I'm sure you've noticed that the number and threat level of the various links have grown. This is a basic part of the design, that as the level goes up, the game will fill these levels more and more, hence why they're so wide to begin with. The problem with this is that it leads to a very uneven difficulty curve due to elements completely outside the player's control. The first point has to do with speed. Toejam here is one of the fastest characters in the game, and you can see me kind of being able to dance around these guys best as I can. But if you're playing somebody slower, you are going to get caught up to very easily and take a lot of damage completely outside of your ability to avoid it. Such as that MIB guy trying to get me right there. On our first play of this game, I was Earl, and I was constantly getting killed simply because enemies were catching up to me the second they saw me. Now, if I got lucky with the leveling up RNG, we would have gotten enough speed ups to kind of circumvent that. But again, I wasn't. The other point, of course, are these presents. And the difficulty of the game definitely goes up or down based on what presents you pull. At the end of this play, I think you'll see that footage here, you're going to see me get the Icarus wings and just completely dominate the final few levels of this play, and they couldn't touch me. But with the game, there's not enough variance in a moment-to-moment point of view. These biomes go for a wide design, but there's nothing really meaningful about it. And it's a difference in terms of how roguelikes present this. Some roguelikes have very wide levels, or very few biomes that are very wide, but then will fill them with all manner of crazy things. Some games go for smaller biomes, but make them visually and gameplay distinctive. With Back in the Groove here, these levels just simply exist. There's no real personality to them. There's no real element of them really affecting what I'm doing. Yes, the elevator is going to be in a different place. The ship piece will be in a different place. But really, it's a difference in me walking up left versus up right. And that is not how you create good variance. And I was really hoping for more of those roguelike elements in this one. Now, earlier we talked about the persistent elements, and I don't think the game handles it right. Like I said, you unlock new presents and characters by beating the game. The problem, though, is that that goes a very long time when you're not getting new content or new rewards. The beauty of something like the Binding of Isaac was that when you first started that play, probably within the first 90 seconds, you're going to get an achievement or some kind of endorphin boost to let you know that you're making progress. With Back in the Groove here, you just go so long without seeing something new or something added to it that it kind of leaves things again just feeling like they're, well, not groovy, I guess. And if they do decide to expand this in the future, I'm hoping that they will add in more biomes, more presence, and even more Earthlings that could either show up or be part of a more friendlier, persistent element. Many roguelikes today will reward you with quote-unquote experience as you play, and when you hit enough thresholds, it unlocks new stuff. I know, of course, Don't Starve is a good example of this, and there are just so many more and my mind is blanking. But you get the idea, and I think that kind of system would have been better for Back in the Groove. But I am going to fast forward here because I think you guys have seen a good representation of the game, and we're going to talk about my final thoughts, and I'm going to show you the ending as well. So I guess a brief spoiler alert may be in effect. So in 2 levels, the game will actually be over, and the ending is the build up to the ending is not all that impressive since it is random, but I do like what Toejam and Earl in the last games did for the kind of your victory screen, and you'll see that probably in the next 40 seconds or so. But here's where I grab the Icarus wings, which are kind of like the most OP item in Toejam and Earl, and you're going to see me just speed on through these remaining levels. While that's going, my final thoughts on the game. I was kind of, again, unfortunately expecting more out of this design, and unfortunately I am a little bit disappointed. What's here, again, is good. Outside of the whole present searching mechanic, there's nothing here that I would mark the game down for. But in today's market with so many interesting roguelike designs and elements, there's just not a lot here if you weren't already a hardcore fan, or again, if you are looking for some co-op gameplay. But this is a really good foundation, like a lot of the roguelikes we've played, for more content. So this is Funkotron, and this is kind of your reward screen where you can wander around, hang out. There's some funky music playing, which unfortunately you can't hear due to this dissection, but this is where you unlock your new present as well as get a new character, but you're meant to replay the game again and again. I just don't think there's enough here to make me want to replay it. There is a quote-unquote hard mode that's unlocked that does improve the difficulty. I don't know what it exactly does. Maybe we'll do that at some point on stream. But again, Back in the Groove is just there. Neither amazing or terrible. And if you are a hardcore fan of this franchise, you've probably already bought it and enjoyed it. But if you have no previous knowledge of this franchise, then what you've seen so far is what you see is what you get. If this all looks interesting for you and you have some friends to play with, I would say give this one a go. But if you're expecting greater depth or more things I haven't talked about, that's not going to be in this one, unfortunately. But with that said, we're going to wrap up this Dissecting Design here. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all that liking and subscribing and such, and we'll be doing more Dissecting Designs in the coming weeks. But I'd like to thank developers for giving me a press key to check out. I'm going to try and find the podcast I did with Greg Johnson, the creator, and put that in the description down below. But come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where examine the art and science of games. Until next time, this has been a dissection of Toejam and Earl Back in the Groove, and I will see you all then. If you're looking for a book on design, my first title, 20 Essential Games to Study, is out now. It is available where most books are sold, and it comes in paper, hardcover, or digital copies. This is the perfect book for anyone interested in learning about game design, whether you are a student, enthusiast, or just a fan. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel linked down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.